Hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Good morning. Good morning to you, and you're listening to another edition of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley, and this is your host, none other than Marc Medley. And in the background, the opening music you heard was the title track from our first CD, Go Up on the Third Limb, and that's the song that's playing right now, Go Up on the Third Limb. I hadn't listened to Go Up on the Third Limb for a while, because usually during the show we play my second CD, which is The Wrinkled Rag. So I decided this morning to switch it up and put the first one back on, and sitting here listening in the headphones, and it was sounding good. I had to let it play for a little while. That's why it took me a couple of minutes to get into the intro, but nonetheless, we are here. I am thrilled to be with you again. It is another Saturday morning, and the weather is warm. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. But I tell you what, as you know, we have a ritual and routine here, and that is we always start off reading from two books. That's What Can Happen When We Pray and Iyanla Vanzant's Until Today. And then we move right on into the weather. I introduce my guests, share some information with you in what we call a public service announcement, and then our interview is underway. Now, it doesn't always go in that order. I don't know, for some reason, I always read it in that order, but really the first thing is the weather, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. It is clear, 60.9 degrees, my kind of weather. I'm actually able to walk out of the door in a t-shirt instead of a coat and hat and gloves and scarves and all that stuff. We are moving to a high of 87. It's going to be partly cloudy early, followed by scattered thunderstorms. It's clear at the moment, though. Expect tonight to be partly cloudy skies, scattered thunderstorms again, low of 65. Tomorrow, Sunday, rain showers in the morning with numerous thunderstorms developing in the afternoon, high of 85, low of 61. More scattered thunderstorms Sunday night. Monday, mixed clouds and sun with scattered thunderstorms, high of 78, low of 56. As we roll on into Tuesday, we see showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, high of 73. Low of 51, and then on Wednesday, mainly sunny, high of 78, low of 53. So between now and Wednesday, we're going to have that threat of showers. So you might want to have an umbrella with you unless you don't mind being wet. That happened to me a couple of days ago. I was walking out of the headquarters to my car. From the second I stepped out the door, heading in the parking lot, that's how long the shower was. Just enough to drench me. I think God sent that one just to drench me, because as soon as I got in the car, it stopped, and I was already soaked by then. So if you don't want to get caught into like a quick storm like that, you might want to have an umbrella handy with you. From the book, What Can Happen When We Pray, for today, May the 31st, a holy volunteer, or is it today the 30th? I'm sorry, May 30th. I'm rushing us one day. My hope is in God. Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my help and my God. My Lord and my God, it is your presence that sustains life. Please sustain me in the parched places of your journey. Allow me to drink from the well that sustains my spirit. Amen. The voice of the psalmist is focused on memories of better times, hope for the future, and questions of when, where, and why. We all go through periods in our lives when our faith is challenged. The psalm is clear evidence of our not being the only ones who have experienced this dilemma. The words express the deepest dread of the faithful to be abandoned by God. But in the final verse of the psalm, the desperation has moved to hope. Hope in God, for I shall again praise him. Our faith is our hope, a hope that assures us that God will not abandon us. That's from the book, What Can Happen When We Pray. One of my favorites for sure is on, and that's What Could Have Been. That's what's going on in the background from the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. For May 30th, she says, I am now receptive to the idea that some things never grow old. They just get better and go deeper. Oh, go ahead, Iyanla. The 10 Commandments for the new millennium. Thou shalt make it your business to get in touch with God first each day. Thou shalt remember to pray for your mother and your father as soon as you finish praying for yourself. Thou shalt honor thyself enough not to take things that do not belong to you, and this includes other people's people. Thou shalt refrain from telling someone something about somebody until you have told that somebody to their face. Thou shalt refrain from saying anything to anybody that you would be ashamed of or afraid to say to God to God's face. Thou shalt not do less than 2 good things for yourself each day. Thou shalt do 1 good thing for another each day. Thou shalt confine all whining, complaining, and criticizing to every other Wednesday between the hours of 2 o'clock a.m. and 3:30 a.m. when the moon is full. When the moon is not full, oh well, thou shalt wait until it is. Thou shalt live fully, or thou shalt not. This choice is yours. Thou shalt believe the best about everything and everyone until you have concrete evidence from God to the contrary. Until today, you may have believed the old ways and the old laws did not apply to your life today. Just for today, apply each of these commandments to every aspect of your life. Today, I am devoted to applying the old millennium laws to the new millennium conditions in my life. That's from the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. I start off reading from these 2 books because I have done that as a ritual and routine for years now, and for some reason, when I start off with those 2 books, the rest of the show flows in a positive vein. So it's kind of like those passages from those books sets a positive vibe for the rest of the morning here on the air. So a couple of times when I haven't been able to do that, sometimes things kind of fell apart. So I'm not superstitious. However, I do know that when I have the opportunity to have some fun with those 2 books, the rest of the morning flows. I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and get our guests introduced. She is on the air. We had the opportunity to chat a little bit last night, and she called in right on time this morning, and her name is Cynthia DeLeonardo. She is a producer and host and president, and she is a radio show host as well. So I have a colleague joining me this morning. She says she started this show for the passions that she has for people, radio, and everything we do to develop excellent relationship success. As everything we do starts with a relationship, so many things go into its success. I know that's right. Her show takes a one-on-one look at how couples achieve this and discuss how we can be at our relationship best, whether it's love, marriage, dating. Everything pertinent to our relationships is discussed on Bear This and That Relationship Radio. And she is the host of that show, and that's the name of the show, Bear This and That. It's a fun and entertaining look at our personal lives together, in which I am devoted, or she is devoted and has a passion for doing. By sharing our stories, we learn a little bit about ourselves with each show that she does. Let's make our relationships the best we have ever had. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphone, none other than Cynthia DeLeonardo. Cynthia, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Same here. And again, I shared with my guest last week or week before last, whenever it was, and we talked a little bit about it last night in terms of a lot of times I may not get a chance to personally meet the guest, and most of the time it's either on the internet or either on the telephone. But in many cases, I can tell from the hello how good the interview is going to be or how much fun we're going to have. And yours, again, falls in that category because I could tell last night when we started chatting, I said, oh, this is going to be good tomorrow morning.
Oh, good. All right. So we're going to start off and with big fun with that first hello. I'm all set there.
Good. Now, for the listening audience, and for those of us, who are generally up at this time, for you, it may or may not be early. But for those of us who are not, because Cynthia, this is my earliest day of the week. The rest of the week, I get up a little bit later than I do on Saturdays. The rest of the week, I can push it to 6 o'clock, 6:15. But on Saturdays, I'm up by like 4:30. So this is my earliest day as well, so don't feel bad. I've gotten used to it. So Cynthia tells me last night, she said, I don't have a problem being up. It's just I've never had to talk that early in the morning. So we're going to see if we can break you in gently. We'll be gentle.
Yes. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I think there's only one person that gets to hear my voice at this hour.
Well, in any event, we will have some fun. There's no, the topic is a serious topic, but it's a topic that you really can have some fun with. And as you said in your intro, everything really kind of depends on your relationships. It really, there is nothing. Unless somehow, which I don't know even if that's possible, unless you somehow wind up on an island all by yourself, there's nothing you can do that doesn't require relationships, whether it's working, whether it's your personal relationships, any affiliation you're in, whether you're clubs or organizations or church or whatever you may be in, it requires relationships. Now, myself, when I'm not doing radio on the weekend, during the school week, I'm in a school. I'm principal of an elementary school. And one of the key things that I try to help my teachers understand is the better relationship that you build with your students, the better student you're going to have, one, but secondly, the better classroom management you will have, because the students that you have very good relationships with, they're most likely not going to give you a whole bunch of trouble. And the vice versa works also, that if you don't establish those relationships and the child feels either you're insincere or either antagonizing them, they're going to give you hell in that classroom. So I try to help them understand that. And I'm just saying all that a long way to say that relationships are critical regardless. And if you are going to get anything done, you are going to have some type of relationship. And Cynthia is the type person, or what she does rather, is to help us build those relationships to make them their very best. So as I said in our ritual and routines, I am going to share a public service announcement with you. Cynthia, I say this every week now for the last, I guess, maybe 6 months or 8 months, might even be a year now. Time flies so fast. I stopped saying we're going to take a break because we're not going anywhere. Because I know a lot of times I listen to the host on TV and all that, and they say, we'll be right back. I'm like, no, we're not going anywhere. I don't want you to go anywhere. I don't want the listeners to go anywhere unless you're turning up your speakers, unless, you're on your social media sites encouraging someone to tune in. That's the only things I need you to do, and listen. So we're not taking a break. I'm going to share this information with you. Regular listeners, you know the drill. Get on every social media site and your mobile device, your phone, text people. Let them know that Cynthia DeLeonardo is on the air with me and that we're going to have some fun. That all they have to do, if they're on the computer, is open up another tab. I'm not even selfish. They can have 15 tabs open. Just let one of them be gobrave.org and their speakers be on. So you let everyone know what they need to do while I share this public service announcement with you.
Welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, and of course, companionship. Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
Fantastic cat. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
The Reading Circle on WP 88.7 FM.
Every time I hear that public service announcement, I get a kick out of it because I love Nico's response. It's this is Nico. I was like, all right. Cynthia, I love to laugh. That's why the interviews that I have that are pretty much that I know are going to be fun, I really get excited about. I love my serious interviews too, but the ones that have the potential to be humorous and make me laugh, I really get excited about those. So I tell you what, we're going to start Normally, while I don't have pat questions, but if I have an author, I usually ask, well, where did it begin? Was it in grammar school, elementary school, high school? What turned you on into writing? But I'm going to ask that same question to you in terms of what made you, or when did the whole relationship building or the notion of working with folks to work on their relationships, where did that start with you?
Honestly, I've thought about that. I think it's just always been there. When I look back, even as a child, I was the type of child that was always trying to find solutions, and I was one of my nicknames. I was a peacemaker. I was called a peacemaker by a number of people. Always trying to keep the peace and finding ways to make things work. And so when I think about relationships, I think it starts very early with us. And you mentioned, unless you're on an island, even with that, the first relationship and the most successful one is to have it with ourselves. And that's a very important one, and I think people miss out on what is the relationship with yourself. And what I mean by that is to take care of oneself, self-love, self-respect. And it all starts there. But, so I've always had a great interest at relationships. And then I went into a career that having great relationships was absolutely pertinent on every single level for success. I went into radio. And it seemed like I did everything. And in radio, there is an outgoing, flowing business. You're out there. And I loved it. I loved it. I was dealing with people and all kinds of people. So, it's always been there. And I went into sales, 20-year career, 20-plus career there in sales. Every day is a different day in sales, right? We all know that as right. Sales executives are out there. And that's what keeps the business so exciting, is that every day is a new day, and every day is a new phase or several new phases. So I've always had an interest in relationships.
Relationships are fascinating because, as I said, there is nothing that doesn't require some type of relationship, and yet many people don't realize that is the relationship building skills are probably something people don't just think to themselves, you know what, let me take a course, or let me talk to somebody, or let me do something in terms of relationship building. And I'm so glad you mentioned the first relationship, which is to love yourself, because a lot of times relationships fail or falter because the person, one or two, if not both of the people in the relationship, or however many it is, don't love themselves. And they say hurt people hurt people. And a lot of times, in particular, because I wound up with 4 daughters. I could not buy a boy. I wound up with 4 daughters. So I have the opportunity, and they span an age group. One's just like 25, 20, 19, and 14. So, and then I have 500 plus kids in the school that I serve. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to the kids, I have this talk in terms of, because, when they get into the teenage stage, they start getting interested in boys or girls or what have you. And what you just said is kind of like where I always first go. Like, okay, first, before you even think about trying to love in your mind anyone else, you got to love yourself first. And that is so important, because loving yourself feeds into self-esteem, or reverse of that would be lack thereof. No self-esteem, low self-esteem is lack of self-love. So that is critical. How do you get someone to get that message? That's where I'm going with all of this. How do you get somebody to understand when you say you got to love yourself? How do you get them to understand that?
Well, you take them through the steps. You take them through the process. It also is a little bit of real self-reflection. Most of the time, I speak to, people that are 35 plus, so we, at those ages, we kind of are experienced, and we can sit down and think about what we want and what we don't want. When we're 20 to 30, there could be a large span of time there. We're finding ourselves, we're still being educated, and there's not a whole lot of time for self-reflection, because that's the experience years. You're just going about life.
Right.
But I like to say, sometimes it's spending time alone. And I'm not sure that some of us learn how to do that. Spending time alone is critical because it forces you to self-reflect, you see. I'm not saying isolate yourself. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes just sitting quietly, even for a few minutes a day, is what I'm speaking of. To think about what's going on around you. To think about what do you want? What don't you want? What kind of experiences are you enjoying? Those types of thought processes. And, they're important. You get a lot out of that. There's so much that comes out of that time that you do this self-reflection. It's getting to know who you are. It's embracing who you are. And what I really like to talk about is if we don't learn how to do that, it really prevents us from loving deeply on a level that we should be loving, deep love, someone else.
I could not agree more. And I'm so glad that you said this whole thing about just getting somewhere and getting quiet. Because, Cynthia, I am convinced there are some people who are afraid of quiet. I deal with kids that whenever the room goes silent, I could see like the terror in their eyes. I could see some that just like if it gets quiet, they have to make some noise. They have to say something. If it's nothing but tapping a pencil or dropping a pencil or making a squeal or something, that they have to say it to disrupt the quiet. So I have kind of become convinced that there are some people that they're so used to chaos and frenzy and noise and everything going on, like they have to have noise going on. And I know for me, I love getting somewhere, getting quiet. And I just did a blog post about a week or so ago, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I don't think it's been that long. And people think my practice is odd. And I don't, only because I understand the sentiments behind it. And that is, my father's buried in a cemetery that is like a memorial park. You wouldn't even know it was a cemetery in there because all the headstones are bronze flat in the ground. They don't have any uprights. There's no big stones, nothing. You go in there, you see the ducks and the geese and the water fountains, and this extremely serene and quiet place. So I don't have a problem with breaking out a lawn chair and just sitting in the cemetery. So people think I'm crazy, like, I don't, what? But I'm saying all that to say, getting somewhere in the peace and in the quiet does give you a wonderful opportunity to just sit there and either reflect and think or just let your mind go blank. Like in yoga or meditation where you're actually asking you don't think about anything. Just sit there and go blank. But I'm convinced people are afraid to do that.
Well, sometimes it's not learned. It also depends on your environment that you grew up in. Sometimes you do grow up in a chaotic environment. There's a lot of children and, see, I like that too, so I can go from quiet to, I love, a house full of children and busy and laughter and, that chaotic thing. But at the same time, I've always cherished my time alone, and it gives you time to think. If nothing else, it gives you time to think about what's happened that day, what happened the day before, and it gives you time to process your life. So we don't always learn that as children because it depends on the environment. If you're always around noise, that's what you become comfortable with, and it becomes very uncomfortable when it's quiet. So, some of us have to learn it. And the best way to learn it, I think, is in school because there's quiet time, right? There's reading time. It even starts in kindergarten. Nap time, going down, quiet time.
That's right.
So these are things that are incorporated into our schools. But I think somewhere down the line, something happens.
Yes.
The teenage years, to the 20s, something changes, and I think we forget how to quiet ourselves, how to quiet our mind, and think about going on.
No, it's true, and we're talking relationships, so some of the things I will bring in will deal with my relationships as well. But I know, like, again, talking about staying in this vein of being quiet, for me in the morning, whenever I get up, that's a time for me to just be quiet. Now, my wife, she jumps right out of bed and hits the radio. And and I'm kind of like, okay, like in my mind, I'm trying to like get my day together. I'm trying to get in. Like she jumps right out of bed and bang, here comes the radio. Like, okay, so then she'll leave the room and she'll like, because the room is down on the bottom floor, to go upstairs to the bathroom, whatever. So now at this point, I turn the radio back off and I'm back in the rooms, making up the bed, nice and quiet, doing whatever I'm doing quietly until she comes back and turn it back on again. But again, that's just two different modes of operation. But for me, and like I was saying earlier, in terms of getting up early in the morning, generally, 6 o'clock, 6:15 or so on a regular weekday is my time for getting up. But I'm up real early on Saturdays to prepare for the show. That Saturday morning when I'm up early like that, nobody else is up in the house, and that quiet time is there. Everything's very quiet while I'm preparing, and I don't turn on the radio and none of that stuff. But it is something for those of you, like Cynthia just said, maybe it is a learned skill. And maybe if you haven't learned it, is one you really need to try. Because this is a fast-paced, crazy world that if you don't take some time just to get away, you could find yourself being really stressed out. And going somewhere being quiet is a wonderful way to de-stress.
That's right. And, a lot of it, too, has to do with how fast-paced our world is now moving. Teenagers today, adults, all of us, are included in this. Everything is on demand, in a second we can completely change modes.
This is true.
We're always, right now, we're always in, sometimes I think it's overdrive mode, where, we're punching this button, punching that button, and there's just always stuff going on. I really do think it does take a skill, and I think it takes a concentrated effort to make sure that you seek that kind of quiet time. Now, it can also be done, by reading, sitting quietly, reading and quieting. I think that's a good place to start. To sit, read, be quiet, and then put the book down. Whatever you're reading, put it down and just sit quietly. Just to quiet your mind. It's very important, and that's when self-reflection takes place. Unless you're doing that, you can't think about what's going on,
right?
Because you're always thinking about what's going on the exterior, which is not how you really find out what's going on inside.
All right, if you've just joined us, I hope you've been here with us since 6 o'clock. It's about 6:27 a.m. or 6:28 a.m. on my clock and watch. I'm going to share some more information with you, but let someone know that Cynthia DeLeonardo is on the air with me. We are talking relationships, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this whole thing of love, L-O-V-E. We talk about it, we read about it, we write about it, we sing about it, everything else about it. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is when we come back. So you know the drill. Get on your social media sites and let someone know that Cynthia's on the air with me to tune in. And again, for those, by some reason, if they don't tune in, if the show is recorded and all the equipment is working right, you can catch it later on a YouTube archive. So I'm going to share some information with you. You know what to do.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance will come in with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That's not cool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. We're heard live each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m., unless we have a doubleheader or a tripleheader, which actually this morning is turning into a doubleheader. Another guest will be calling in at some point in the 7 o'clock hour. And then if that does not occur, then we have the opportunity to listen in on the gospel music until 9 o'clock. I'm with you. And then Barry comes on a little bit later with the Naked Brunch. My guest this morning is Cynthia DeLeonardo, and we are talking relationships. And right before the break, I said when we came back, or right before I shared that information with you, I said when we come back, we were going to talk a little bit about love. And Cynthia, one of the things I did this year in my school, last summer, I was watching the news, and they put on there that there were these two gentlemen in New Orleans that were going around hanging up the word love on various telephone poles and fences and places, you know, just strategically around New Orleans. And they were kind of doing like a social experiment. They wanted to see if the fact that folks were constantly being shown the word love, would that kind of subconsciously change what was going on in the city, cut down on some of the violence, some of the negativity. I love the idea. Went back to my school and printed up like 300 signs and have them hanging in every classroom, hanging in every hallway, stairwell, with the same thinking that as the students walk through the halls and in their class and they see these red letters that say LOVE, that somehow it would get into their subconscious and we would see things change as well. And so our theme for the year at the school has been exactly what we're talking about, which has been love. Matter of fact, on my signboard right now it says the only thing that will transform love is the only thing that will transform Napier Academy. That's the name of my school. But what is this thing called love? Because there are different types of love, and I think sometimes people get them confused. There's eros, E-R-O-S. There's phileo. There's, and I think it's 4 of them all together, if I'm not mistaken. But I know those 2. I know eros, which is kind of like the root of erotica. And then I know there's phileo, and then there's agape. Agape is the other one I was looking for. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about what is love and how does that impact our relationships?
I think that's a complex question. The reason I say that, really, the reason I say it is because our definition of our definition. This is what happens at 6 o'clock when I'm talking. When I have to connect the wires, the brain wires to the mouth. I think it means something different for everybody because there's no 2 hearts that are the same. In general, it means to love, to care, and the definition is different depending on who it is that we're loving, whether it be our parents, that's a different love, our siblings, our teachers, or is it our partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, so this, the intimacy level of it changes and, the meaning changes. I think if you ask a lot of people, in their heart, the definition is a little different.
So when I'm talking about exactly what you're describing as the different types of love, like I said, I hit 3 of them. I think there's a 4th. I'll have to go online to see what the 4th one. But there's phileo, there's agape. Agape is the love for just the fact that we're human beings. Just the fact that, you're another human being. I love you just for the fact that we're human beings. So therefore, I'm not going to do anything to harm you. It doesn't matter if your gender, your race, your orientation, or whatever. That I just love you as a part of mankind. That's agape love. Yeah. All right. But then you have the erotic, which is kind of like the intimacy type love, the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, what have you. You have that. And then you have, I guess, phileo would probably fall in that other category, kind of like what you're saying for your teacher or your this, that, and the other base. And again, I'd have to look them up. But No matter when you walk into any convenience store or any supermarket, when you look at all, whether it's Star or Globe or People, or it's always having something to do with who's with who, who's zooming who's breaking up with who. So what is this? What is it that keeps folks either together or either breaking up?
It's a passion that we naturally have. No one is excluded from the cravings of wanting to be desired. It's just as simple as that. It's the one emotion that we have no control of. No matter how much we try to put a cap on it, we have no control over it, because you never know. Even the people who say, "Oh, I'm never going to love again. My relationship failed," and they'll walk out of the house one day and they'll lock eyes with someone, and there's a magic spark that goes on. All uncontrolled that they cannot put a cap on.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, because there's this thing called love at first sight. Some believe in it, some don't. I mean, what are your thoughts on, as you just described, love at first sight? That's what I was hearing when you said you lock eyes and wow.
Well, that's lust at first sight.
There is a difference. They're both four-letter words that begin with L, but yes.
Yes. That's the first thing is lust. That's lust at first sight. The love comes later, but when you lock eyes and it's like, bam, that's lust. It's like, wow. When it knocks you, completely out of your shoes, that's lust at first sight, definitely. No doubt about it.
Well, okay. There's a role that plays. And it goes back to what you said a couple of minutes ago in terms of everyone wants to be recognized. And I think if the world understood that there is, I don't care how notorious, how cantankerous, how whatever bad that people classify you in, the worst person is still looking for that same thing. And that's affirmation, recognition. You see that I'm here, I'm not invisible. And most people, that's what they're crying out for. Now, the cry comes in different ways, whether it's now you becoming a criminal or you now becoming a whatever. But it's still at the heart of it, no pun intended. At the root of it, at the heart of it, is still that same need for recognition. Now, for those who are whatever, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But for those who are more physically attractive, whatever that means, they tend to get more of that than someone who may not be as, whatever our standards are. Because, again, beauty's in the high. I'm convinced from some of the things I've seen, there is someone for everyone. No matter how unattractive they may or may not be or look or act on it, there is someone for everyone. But let's talk about the lust thing that we were laughing about a couple of minutes ago. What role does that play in terms of just being attracted to someone or someone getting together?
I think that's just a natural instinct that we have, and I think it's perfectly healthy to have that reaction. That's what makes it fun as well. To get, if no one's ever had that, wait until you have that. It's like magic. To have your heart literally skips a beat, to sit on eggshells, waiting, anticipating that phone call and the voice on the other end. That's magical. It feels magical, and it's a great thing. Now, we don't stay in that stage for a long time.
You read my mind, because that's where I was going next.
It could be 90 days.
Talk about the honeymoon's over.
But it could be 90 days. It could be 6 months. I tend to think the 6-month period, there's a reality check right there, because and it depends on how much time you spend with someone. But at the 6-month mark, and that's why you see a lot of relationships kind of fall to the wayside at 6 months, because reality starts to kick in. You're starting to find out a little more. The fantasy is out. The mystery's gone. So if the relationship is strong and it's really something beyond the infatuation period, it goes on after 6 months. And sometimes people stay madly in love, for a lifetime. Sometimes you don't. But the infatuation period, I think, sometimes really is like 90 days, and then you start to find out the real world.
So that's where
and
who's it? The late great BB King, because they just up until a couple of weeks ago he was with us, but one of his standard song was "The Thrill Is Gone." And so how do you now this euphoria that you just described for 90 days, or how do you keep that going?
It depends on what you're looking for. How do you keep it going is you have to want to keep it going. It's as simple as that. You have to have the deep desire. Now, if your attention span is light and you're really not committed to a relationship, and once that mystery is over, that the thrill is also gone, then you're just not ready for a relationship. I call that the shopping mode. The shopping mode, or there's a lot of people that they love to be in that phase of a relationship, and they will go from one person to the next because they crave that, the new feeling, the mystery, the infatuation, the lust, and once this starts to wear down. The relationship fizzles. You keep it going just by your own desires. It's a commitment in your heart. Before you actually meet that person, you have had to have made that commitment that you want a relationship. Now, when you meet somebody and they're not your cup of tea, obviously it go on to the next one. But the deep desire must already be there to want to make a relationship work. A lot of people say, and I don't like this expression, love is complicated. It really isn't. Love is very easy.
Right.
We make it complicated.
Correct.
Because we're not putting our cards on the table. We're not self-reflecting and thinking about what is it that we want, or we're just floating by, or we're just floating on the relationship without really reflecting what it is we want.
It's true. And going back to this whole notion of kind of keeping that euphoric state or the fantasy state, are there things you can do to keep, when you have an extended lifetime relationship, if you will, it kind of goes in cycles. There are dead spots, there's exciting spots, there's dead spots. Can you recreate that initial fantastic, euphoric feeling when you first meet, or that first wow? Can you continuously recreate that?
I think the best way is to never let it go. And that's what I talk about. There's never letting it go. You see, some of us let it go. We get comfortable. We get complacent in our relationships. The desire, kind of goes dim. Never let it go. Never let it even get there. See, that's the magic right there, is don't let it get there. Correct. Every day, on a daily, this is something that we should be doing. We shouldn't be so complacent when we're, at our organizations and the place of employment. We have to stay on our toes, yes?
That's correct.
We got to stay on our toes. We got to be on time. We got to punch a clock on time. There's expectations. There's rules. There's standards. We need to take those same expectations and incorporate them into our relationship. All right? Don't get so comfortable, with somebody that it's complacent and boring. This is work. You want to be desired by this person.
That's correct.
So we want to be desired. So in order to be desired, you have to make yourself desirable.
Yes.
keep yourself desirable. So when you locked eyes and, you knocked each other, off your feet the first time you locked eyes, well, what was it about that day that made that feeling occur? And hold on to that. Hold
This
on
is true.
to
I share with my guests because I'm on while we're talking on the air, I'm multitasking if there is such a thing, because even that's debatable as if there is such a thing as multitasking. But as the guest is talking, when they say something that's quotable, I put it on Twitter or on my social media sites. And Cynthia just said, in order to be desired, you have to make yourself desirable. So I'm I'm getting ready to shoot that out as long as the internet is working, doing what it's supposed to do, and I'll put your name behind it. But it is so true because they tell, and most of the time it was always said to women, but it works for men too, that whatever you did to get her or get him, you better keep doing. Because some people really they get to the point where they figure, you know what, I got him, I got her, I don't have to do nothing else. And then whenever him or her starts getting a wandering eye, then they start wondering. So when one starts wandering, the other one starts wondering. It's like, you got to understand exactly as you just said, whatever you did to keep him or her, you better keep doing it. Because I think, and this is 2015, I think some of the times have changed in terms of mindset. There was a time, I guess maybe in the 1800s, early 1900s, what have you, where in terms of where the whole roles, where the male was the breadwinner and the woman for the most part stayed home and was the homemaker, so forth and so on. And she really didn't have income and things of her own. So she was extremely dependent upon that breadwinner. And so whatever the breadwinner did, a lot of times that's what the spouse would put up with. And what I'm saying is a lot of things they did were not positive. They were negative things. But because of that fear of losing them, they would just put up with it. And so they stayed stuck in these relationships they no longer wanted to be in. It's a different day. Folks will step on you. They will walk. You know what? I'm not happy with this. I'm out. And some get, like, if it's a marriage vow or whatever, they think, oh, well, you know what? They took the vow, so they're going to be here forever. Folks are not sticking with that in these days. So talk a little bit about this whole thing, that road we're on, of whatever you did to be desired, whatever you did to get him or her, to continuously do that. Now, that's the question I'm asking, is like, how do you do that? Because I ran into someone the other day that said I think they're getting ready to have their 65th wedding. Okay, there we go. I ran into somebody the other day, said they were about to celebrate their 65th wedding anniversary. I said, God bless you.
No.
60. So how do you do that? How do you keep that going?
There's the commitment. It's the commitment. That's what it is. It's a commitment. You'll find these couples, and they will be very honest and say, it's not easy. Nothing's easy, right? We go to work every day. Do we have good days, bad days, medium days, mediocre days? Well, nothing changes in relationships. And in a span of time, there's so much that goes on. It's called life, and we have no control of sometimes the circumstances. Between careers, jobs, raising families, and all the things that go on in the span of life that affects us in our relationships. But the differences are that people who like this couple, 65 years, that's really incredible by any standards, they made a commitment early on to stay committed to each other. It's as simple as that. Today, you made some very good points. Today, people don't do that. Well, that's an issue. That's an issue today, that there's no tolerance.
Right.
Today, it's zero tolerance, and that's not good that it's zero tolerance.
Right.
That's not what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to learn how to have the strength, the backbone, and to suck it up a little bit. Be tolerant. Suck it up a little bit. You had a bad day. Yeah, suck it up a little bit. Come home, and making the best out of something that sometimes is uncomfortable. And that means not coming home and yelling at your spouse.
Right.
Not retaliating because you had a bad day. But finding a place in the relationship of love and commitment to say, wait a minute, this is somebody that I took a vow with.
Right.
This is somebody that knocked me off my feet. And you have to go back to that and remind yourself.
That's right.
And I also like to say, when you decide to commit to somebody, do these things. write a short list of the reasons why you love this person, and keep one in your office drawer, out of sight from your colleagues, obviously. Keep it somewhere where you can get to it. Keep one in your car, in your glove box, and keep one next to the same note, Xerox 3 times. Keep one in the drawer of your nightstand, so that in these rocky moments that you have, if you're at work, take this out. 5 things of why this person is so special to you, and remind yourself. Keep those thoughts at the forefront of your mind. Put photographs out when you're at work of your spouse, of your partner.
That's right.
Put them out as a reminder on those, whatever, for whether it be distractions that you get. It also puts the word out to everybody that you work with of where your values are and your commitment is to your family.
That's right.
There's a lot of reasons why we do the things we do, and it's ultimately, Mark, making the commitment in your heart. And I like to say, whether you're married or not, marriage is wonderful, and I'm a strong advocate for it, and I believe it, and I think it's great. I also think people should do what they're comfortable with. The commitment starts in the heart.
Correct.
That's it. That's it. No matter what paper you have, or no matter what you've said, the commitment is in the heart. That's it. And that's what keeps the desire going. That's what keeps the relationships everlasting.
And when I was talking earlier, when I asked the question, well, how do you do that? You just gave one of the tactics or strategies, which is making that list. I mean, because I don't think the average person is just going to think off the top of his or her head to do that. But that's one strategy. Now, certainly the picture thing, that's always worked for me. I've always had pictures of kids and spouses as soon as they walk in the door. I mean, in fact, if you come into my office, you can read me very quickly. You know all my interests, and family is one of them. And spouse pictures and kids have always been there. But the list is a wonderful idea in terms of, because there are days when you're going to get annoyed with each other. I mean, I've had people tell us, we've been together for 40, 50 years and never had an argument. Now, most of us that hear that kind of question that. We've never, ever argued. I mean, for anybody, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, you help me out on this, but anybody that can go through that long of a period of time and never have a disagreement, I kind of wonder. And I don't know, is that possible?
No, that means there's something missing there.
Right. That's kind of where we all land when we hear that statement, too.
I like to say that there's something missing. I mean, are you talking? What's happening? Then that means that's an extreme as well. That means we're not communicating. How many things is there resentment building up there?
Right.
Because I think that's a red flag for me when I hear that. That means there's carpet in the house, and somewhere there's a mountain going on.
I agree.
And sections of that household that will explode at some point.
I agree. I mean, but I literally have heard. I know a couple. They've relocated now, but I know a couple that I know well that would pronounce that me and such have been together X number of years, and a lot of years, and we've never ever had an argument. And all the skeptical faces come on at the same time, like, oh, come on now. But that is the other extreme. That, like, I agree with you that, wait a minute, something's not quite right there about that statement, because you will never ever, we're talking relationships, get 2 people together that's always on the same accord. And where I'm saying and going with this is based on Cynthia's recommendation. You have the opportunity to go back and reflect on what drew you together to begin with, and that reframes your mind. A lot of times, whenever you kind of reflect and think back, you go through a reframing, and you can almost have that experience. Again, like for me, I shared it, well, I don't know if I've shared it on the air or not, but my wife and I, when we first met and our first date or first dinner or whatnot, we connected over The Lion King. We're literally sitting there in the restaurant reciting lines from The Lion King. And so now when things start getting a little rocky, that's one of the things that I start thinking back to, was us sitting there laughing about some of the lines in The Lion King.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And, the healthiest relationships are the ones with the most conversation.
Right.
the healthiest relationships are the ones with the most communication, effective communication, the ones that are talking, because there's nothing mounting, there's no resentment. It's all being aired out on a daily basis. We should talk about what's going on, and there's a way to brace even difficult conversations. There's a way to do it, and it's, I like to say it's paying attention. Paying attention to our relationships like we care about them.
Absolutely. Earlier,
never putting them on a shelf.
Right. You had mentioned earlier the word, tolerate or tolerance or whatever you were doing. But it comes down to compromise. At some point, no one individual in any relationship is always going to get his or her way. So you have to, all right, you know what, I'm going to give on this and you give on that, or what have you. But if you ever go into anything, whether it's work relationship, your personal relationships, your organizational relationships, or whatever, if you go to any of those thinking that it's always going to be your way, you're kidding yourself again.
It's learning how to be with somebody, and if you find that you're with somebody and you're resentful and if you're having difficulty making it work, then it could also be that you're not committed in the relationship, in any relationship. And this is why it all goes back down to we must have that self-reflection to know what we want before we get into the relationship. If more of us do that beforehand, the less failure we'll have in our relationships. Because if you're not tooled up for the commitment of a relationship, which can be very demanding,
right?
Then the relationships falter. Relationships take a commitment, and they take desire. And when you're ready, see, none of this stuff has worked. You see, because you want to be there,
right? And again, in terms of the compromise, in terms of the give and take, in terms of getting it out, because you have some, and this is where it gets a little scary with that we've never had an argument type saying or statement. Someone somewhere could be holding a grudge. Where does where grudges, how does that impact relationships? Now, and not only between couples, it could be between kids and parents. It could be between, the significant others or what have you. But there are some people that now hold grudges that just sit there. Yeah, talk about that a little bit in terms of, or what has been your experience in terms of grudges?
Grudges are dangerous because you can't fix anything and solve and have a solution for something that you can't see.
Correct.
That you can't see and that you can't hear. So someone can be sitting very quietly, holding a grudge. And what happens with grudges? They get worse over time, yes? They don't go away. They get worse and they build. So, you're quietly building a huge pile of anger somewhere that somebody else is not even clued into. They might start seeing the signs, and the signs come in various different destructive behavior patterns. But this is what grudges do. This is why it's so important to talk. When you talk to people who say, my parents never talked, we never talked, you'll find out that these relationships were not healthy.
Right.
They weren't healthy because they weren't happy. You have to talk in the relationships, and even if you have to learn how to do it, it's essential, it's crucial, it's critical for success, and not just for relationships on our intimacy level, but talking with effective communication is pertinent to every relationship, in your organization, in your networking skills, with your children. We must learn how to do that. It is so, so important. So grudges are dangerous all the way around in any relationship, because it's, and for your listeners, if you're sitting there with a grudge, it burns a hole in your heart.
Correct.
It really does. It burns a hole in your heart, and it corrupts your mind. And it is very difficult to move on to any healthy place when you're sitting there in a ball of anger all the time.
That's great. And I'm sitting here again. That's another one of the quotables is getting ready to go on. It's getting ready to go on Twitter. If you're sitting there with a grudge, it burns a hole in your heart and corrupts your mind. Is that what you said? Is that how you said it?
It corrupts your mind. And what I mean by that, corrupting your mind, is this is all. I think people become embraced by their anger.
Right.
So, and this is what I mean by corrupting your mind, because you can't think straight.
Correct.
It's hard to think straight. It's hard to ever be happy, to find yourself in a happy place if you're holding anger within your body.
Right.
Because that's where it stores. Grudges. We hold grudges inside of our bodies.
Right.
And so, a lot of things happen with grudges. You can't have a healthy relationship, and you can't have a healthy relationship with yourself because you're so unhappy. That's a very unhappy place to be.
It really is, and I'm up on the 7 o'clock hour, but I want to continue on, and because Deb scheduled you with me, Deb Bailey. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
And Deb scheduled other guests as well. And one of the guests that she scheduled actually is due next week, but she thinks her day is today. So I said, all right, you know what? We'll do the interview in the 7 o'clock hour, which I still may do. But if she calls, I'm probably going to move her out because our conversation has gotten so hot now. I want to continue on. And I'm grateful and thankful that I had the autonomy to do that at the studio. And so if Regina calls in, I'm going to probably put her off another half hour or so that we can continue on. But there's a couple of things I need to do for our good friends with the Federal Communications Commission, known as the FCC. I think that's it. I think that's the acronym. I know it's FCC. I know it's Federal Communications something, commission, committee, whatever. But in any event, we're at the 7 o'clock hour. A couple of things I need to do. I'm going to do that and roll into that. And then we're going to come back, for the next few minutes and talk about a part of the intimate relationships between significant others, spouses, or what have you, that is an integral part of that relationship as well. And I'll keep you guessing, which I don't think you have to guess too much, those in the listening audience. You probably figured it out already. I'll give you the first letter of it is an S. It's a 3-letter word. I think you can figure it out while I'm doing the top of the hour stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back, and then we'll wrap up. So don't you dare move. Let someone know that Cynthia is still on the air with me on GoBrave.org.
Hi, my name is Stan Myers, and I'm here at FM 88.7. I do a jazz show called Just a Mood. And if you like the music, anything from Louis to Lester Bowie, I'm your man. That's Sunday afternoons, 3 to 6. Looking to hear from you, okay?
Fresh from the studio to your ears. No commercials, no delays. Brand new music starting right now.
Listen to Brave New Radio on your smartphone with TuneIn Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
WPSC FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
All right, we are in the 7 o'clock hour. Regina, is that you? Okay, I tell you what, Regina, I did go back to our original email, and you actually are scheduled for June the 6th. I'm looking at the email from Deb, but I tell you what, I am willing to go ahead and make this a Reading Circle doubleheader. But I would ask that I'm going to put you off another half hour to 7:30 if that's possible, because my first interview is still on. So I'm going to give you the option of either we'll stay with our original date that Deb gave me of the 6th, or if you give me till 7:30, then we'll just make it a Reading Circle doubleheader. All right, that works for me. So then I will see you at 7:30, and we will make this a Reading Circle doubleheader.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. And Cynthia, you're still there, correct? Cynthia?
I'm here.
You are? Okay, good. All right. Now, I'm going to give the folks the weather, and then we're going to forge ahead. Like I said, I have the autonomy, and I'm grateful for that if I turn it into a Reading Circle doubleheader, the 3 hours are mine to do however I kind of want to do with them as long as I'm responsible. And so I kind of mix and match. Some Saturdays they get all music whenever I have no guests, and then other Saturdays they may get 2 guests or 3 guests. So I'm going to give the weather and then let folks know what's going on with that. And then we're going to continue on. I think I'm going to give the weather because the internet is doing all kinds of funky stuff here with me in terms of letting me know what the weather is. So let's see here. Will we be able to? Yes, we will. All right. All right, folks, this is what's happening right now. If you remember in the first hour, I told you it was 60 degrees. We've moved up 3 degrees, 3.5 degrees, actually. It's 63.5 degrees right now. We're moving to a high today of 87. Partly cloudy early, followed by scattered thunderstorms, a 50% chance of rain. Partly to mostly cloudy skies, scattered thunderstorms during the evening, low near 65. And then on Sunday, scattered thunderstorms in the morning, then mainly cloudy. Variable clouds with scattered thunderstorms Sunday night, 85 as a high, 61 as a low. And then on Monday, 78 as a high, 56 as a low. Mixed clouds and sun with scattered thunderstorms, considerable cloudiness. And then Tuesday, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, high of 73. Clear skies Tuesday night, low of 51. And then rounding out our forecast on Wednesday, mainly sunny, high of 78, low of 53. That is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. If you joined us in the 6 o'clock hour, then you know my guest is Cynthia DeLeonardo, and we are talking about relationships. And we've kind of covered various facets of relationships. And there's one, I guess they kind of say you save the best for last, or however they do that. I don't know. Certainly not least. Well, I think that's last but not least. Certainly last but not least in terms of relationships, particularly our intimate relationships, is this whole notion or this whole thing of sex. How important, or is it overrated or inflated? How important is the role of sex in an intimate relationship between partners?
It's very important. It's the way we connect. It's the way we connect. Now, I know there's a lot of people, well, sex is not that important, but you know what? It really is. Everything is important, sex included. Now, should it be the only thing that's important in a relationship? Absolutely not. And this is where the lust comes in.
Absolutely.
This is where the lust comes in. But, as we get to know each other and the reality creeps in and life creeps in, sex sometimes takes a back burner, especially with, young families. I've been there. I have a son. We get busy with our careers. Life comes in, and we're exhausted. And unfortunately, the first thing that gets shelved in the relationship is what?
Right.
It's our lovemaking.
Correct.
Okay? That can't get shelved ever. It can get shelved. It cannot get shelved. It gets shelved, and it goes. Everything else, the dishes, everything else goes before our intimacy. I say keep the dishes in the sink for an extra hour longer.
I could not agree more, and that's one of the reasons why I brought the subject up. I mean, it is a part of it, but I think people need to understand it because this connects to what we were talking about earlier, this whole notion of what you did to get him or her, you got to keep doing, because once you get to the point where you can take someone for granted, oh, well, I don't have to do that anymore. You got to stay with me. Oh, I don't have to do that anymore. Because as Cynthia so eloquently put it, getting shelved. Once that area begins to get shelved, it again opens the doors for other opportunities that really you don't want to happen. That's what I was teasingly saying earlier about the wondering and wandering. You don't want that to happen.
Now let me say this. That's very funny, Mark. I love it. Sometimes you can. Sex is not everything in a relationship.
Correct.
And if people are going to stray, sex is not going to keep them there. And matter of fact, nothing you do will keep them there.
That's correct.
A lot of people, this is why it's a relationship. Relationships start with a commitment of two hearts, period. If that commitment is not there and both people, you don't have a relationship.
That is correct.
Right? The intimacy part is a huge part. And I tweet this a lot about kissing each other. We become very complacent in our relationships. I want you to think about, do you remember what the first kiss was like in your relationships that you're in right now? These are for all the people who are in relationships. Do you remember what your first kiss was like? Do you remember what it was like anticipating what it was going to be like to kiss this person that knocks you off your feet, literally? Keep that. Remember how important the kiss is. The
Absolutely.
Kiss with the desire, the intimacy, the lovemaking gets shelved. It gets drilled down to a passing peck.
Right.
Or some couples have told me they don't kiss at all.
Well, this is sad but true. I hate to laugh, but it's just,
right?
It's just the way you said it. Don't kiss at all.
They don't kiss at all. They don't kiss at all. And there's some relationships I've heard that the intimacy is there, so they're having sex, but there's no kissing. Well, the kissing is where the passion is. You see, we can all have sex, but
right.
The passion is in the kiss. That's where the passion and the love lies. Right there is the locking of the lips. It's the kiss.
Right.
And you can tell just how someone feels about you just by the way they kiss you.
All right now. I'm going to make sure this recording get out.
I know. I think this show should be moved to midnight to 1 a.m. Really.
Yeah, I remember those days too. But it's so, and again, as I said, this is, listening audience, this is a very serious topic, but at the same time, it can be very humorous. As a matter of fact, we have to laugh at ourselves. And some of this stuff really is so simple that it is funny. And as you just heard Cynthia said, that folks don't even do. And then again, they wonder why things are happening the way they're happening. And these are very simple points that people scoff at, or either like, no, we're getting to the root here of certain things. And that's why you said something earlier about if you're not committed to the relationship, it won't matter the sex, the design. That's why I hate the phraseology and the term, he took my man, or she took my woman, or, he took my woman, or she took my man. And I tell people, first off, I have a problem with that because I'm not an inanimate object. Nobody's going to pick me up like a cup or like some other object and take me. If I go, I went. Didn't nobody take my man. Ain't nobody take me. So, all right. So I have a problem with those words, he took my woman, she took my man. I have a problem with that because no, they didn't. They went. Nobody took them anyway. They made a decision. They are human beings. They made a decision for whatever reason. Lack of commitment, didn't like what was going on, wasn't happy. But to just take that and for the sake of ease, or to not self-reflect, to say, well, what role did I play in that? If this thing disintegrated, what was my role in it? Because some people go into denial. Relationship disintegrates, and it was all the other person. They had nothing to do with it. Nothing. No part that they have in it going bad. So when I hear that he took my man, she took my dad, she took my man, he took my woman, no. When I get in that conversation, I get on a soapbox. And going back to what you said earlier in terms of it being work, there was a quote that I heard a long time ago that said, anything that look easy ain't. You can rest assured, anything that's looking easy, someone is putting some work into it behind it. That's why it looks easy. But there's that part that you can't see. So for I was teasing about the relationship of the marriage that was going to be 65, the 65th anniversary. You can rest assured over those 65 years, some work was put in. It's looking easy from those of us on the outside, but no one saw the work that went behind it. But for the fact that they're still together for 65 years, you can rest assured as we're sitting here that some work went in. So Cynthia is absolutely on point when she says the commitment has to be there, and it doesn't matter in terms of what you do or don't do. If a person wants to go, they're going to go. And if a person wants to stay, they're going to stay. But just please, those of you out there who are ready to yell, she took my man, nobody takes anybody. They're human beings. They think. They make decisions. So sex is a big part of it in terms of it's not the only piece. And I concur 100%. But at the same time, it is a piece, a big piece, no pun intended. There's a big piece of any relationship, an intimate relationship. So when you talk to people, when they ask, because the question I was going, what do you do? And when you say, well, I'm a relationship expert, how are you received?
How am I received?
In terms of like whenever folks say, well, how do people perceive or what do they think relationship experts are?
Well, people are always fascinated. I'm always received very well when I say that I talk relationships. I'm received very well. People love it, actually. People want this, you see, Mark. They're craving it.
Right.
They're craving for answers. They're craving for solutions. Everyone that I've spoken with, and even in very casual or brief conversations in passing that I meet, even on the street, they love it. So, people want to hear how they can make their relationships wonderful.
Right.
They want this.
Right.
Addressing, your points about people, going off and, she took my, he took my. You're absolutely right. And I've never subscribed to that, Mark. I've never subscribed to someone can take someone from you. I don't believe in that. It takes two to tango. That's never going to change.
Correct.
People leave and for their own good will, they leave, and they make their own decisions. But it all goes back down to the basics, and relationships are not that difficult. It's breaking things down to the basics, and it boils down to communication. So if there was something not going on in the relationship that you need addressed that you're not happy with, that should be voiced.
Right. And see, this is where, listening audience, this is where everything connects. If you think about everything we've been talking about for the last hour and 17 minutes, this is where it all connects. We talked about the grudges. We talked about, holding things in. We talked about being able to communicate daily, to be able to share whatever it is you're feeling. It all connects, and it's all a part of being able to have that effective relationship. And so if you're listening, even the tactic that she gave, and I'm going to ask as soon as I'm finished here, what are some other tactics, if you have any, in terms of, like you shared with the list in your desk and in your car and in your pocket and so forth, what are some other tactics that folks can do to keep things fresh and alive, or when they get into the situation where things get barren or either testy, that can reframe them? Do you have any other techniques as well?
They're endless, and they're simple, and they don't cost anything. The first thing is the talk. Okay, because you can't find solutions if someone else doesn't know what's going on. The second thing is to be kind. So when you're talking, watch your tone. It's a respect thing. So, we all expect to have testy days, but it boils down to, are you respecting your partner?
Right.
When you address them. So no matter what it is you talk about, do it with respect. Sometimes, and if it's a difficult conversation, I think those should be done outside of the home. Go to the restaurant, because things are a little less tense. If you're out and, whether it's your favorite meal, your favorite restaurant, you're outside with fresh air, dining out, it's a great environment, a little ambiance. That comes in and takes the pressure off of the difficulty of the conversation, and it really works for you. So those difficult conversations, or, you got to talk about something that you're on eggshells about, take it out to a place of comfort, and watch your tone, and always keep the respect there. Just because we're angry about something doesn't mean that we should ever disrespect our love, really. leaving little notes, kindness. These are all basic things that we forget to do. Kindness leads back into the respect thing. Kindness, just kindness. Random simple acts of kindness. Meeting your love for lunch, leaving notes. Do you call them during the day? Now, I know we get very busy during the day, and some people can't get to a phone during the day. What about a nice text or an email? Just to let them know that you're thinking about them, you know?
That's correct.
These little thoughtful things do more for your relationship than an exotic vacation out of the country, really. These little daily things, because what they do is they constantly build on that solid foundation.
That's correct.
And they're building love on top of love, and this is how you strengthen your love for each other. Because when someone feels desired by you, what do those feelings do? You reciprocate, usually.
That's right.
You reciprocate because you feel desired. You don't have to bring home a huge, expensive bouquet of flowers every day. Nobody does that. But how about one flower? Plant a garden together.
That's right.
There's so many different things that we can do together to incorporate the love and respect that we have. And it's most of it is little things, Mark. The big things we can't do all the time, and I don't think we should rely on vacations. The annual vacations to get together to sit and talk to each other. Do these things every single day.
Correct. I could not, and those of you listening, because see, she's not just talking to you, she's talking to me. She's talking to me as well. I'm listening just like you are, and the tips are fantastic. And they are all connected. And like she said, it's simple. We really do. We said this earlier in the earlier hour. We really do complicate something that, for the most part, really is kind of basic and simple. And we just mess it all up.
The dishes at 9 o'clock that you have to do on your routine.
Right.
Okay, so you do the dishes from 9 to 10. From 10 o'clock to 11, maybe you're putting the kids to bed. You know what I say? 9 o'clock, don't do the dishes. 9 o'clock, go to the bedroom. Really.
Right.
Do something. Do not put your love life and your love making on the shelf so that it falls at the very bottom of your list for the day when you're all tired and exhausted.
Right.
Don't do that. Get away somewhere.
Right.
And make sure this happens. Kiss the person you love.
Right.
Like it's your wedding day.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Absolutely. And,
right?
last night when Cynthia and I were talking, I said the questions are very spontaneous. And she says, I love spontaneity. And that's important as well. You don't want to get into a routine of the same. I mean, you just know the next move. It's like, okay, at this point, this is going to happen. Okay, after this is going to happen. And I'm not necessarily talking about just about sex. I'm talking about just in general, that you get back to that complacency, back to that whole notion of I don't have to do anything different, the same old routine every day. You do have to mix it up. You got to surprise each other every now and again, throw each other off guard in a fun, flirty, teasing way. Because to me, that's what helps keep it alive as well. Like, I don't know what to expect out of you next. I mean, you just don't want to get caught into that same old rut.
Routines are great, and obviously routines tool you for success in our lives. No doubt about it. But in the intimacy department, you want spontaneity, so you don't have to spend a lot of money all the time and go away, and, you can't take the time off of work. Do an overnight thing.
Right.
Do an overnight in a hotel nearby with a spa and all that great stuff. Get a massage.
That's correct.
Swimming, go swimming together. If we're in the middle of winter, go into a hotel that's got a great heated, jacuzzi.
Right.
Don't ever forget how to have fun together.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting, as you were saying, I have done that before, and the overnight has seemed like a week. I mean, the overnight has felt like when you come back the next day, it's like, wow, that felt almost like the week-long vacation because we had such fun, and we were only gone for a night, but it felt a lot longer than that. My point is, you break the pattern. And just from breaking the pattern, it almost gives you the same feeling as if it had been that big vacation or what have you.
That's right. That's right. Let's face it. Routines get what?
Right.
Boring.
Right.
Okay? Boring. Spontaneity in romance is so beautiful. It's, like I say, and women, this applies to you as well. I'm also a believer in women can also give flowers. It's not just the man that gives the flowers, but we both can show up with a bouquet of flowers or one rose or something.
Right.
Let them know that you are in love.
Right.
Let them know that you think about the small things. All of these things play into laying that foundation of your commitment to each other. It all plays in.
Absolutely.
9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever you got to do. Make it spontaneous, make it fun, and keep thinking of new, interesting things to do. I tweeted recently about there was someone I knew many, many, many years ago, and I asked him, I've been on this relationship thing for a long time, Mark, but because I asked this person, what do you do to keep that fire burning in your relationship, a good hot fire? Because he was always so happy.
Right.
And this person had a bad divorce, and when I found out on the back end of this, is they both had suffered horrible divorces.
Right.
So this new relationship, they came together with families, with children. So this is not a couple that were alone. This was a couple that, all of a sudden they were bringing children into the mix as well. But something that they did that was very successful for them, away from the house with all the kids, they would meet each other every Friday night in a different restaurant bar.
Right.
In separate cars, like they didn't know each other.
Right.
And and walk up to the bar and initiate conversation like they did not know each other.
Right.
And they. Now, I don't know what the rest of their rules were, but I took their successful story.
Right.
And I said, do this, and you're not allowed to, on this particular night, talk about the bad work week, the bad things, the kids. Don't talk about, because what keeps that new relationship so interesting is we don't have these conversations yet.
Right.
We're not talking about, that Tommy didn't do his homework. We're not talking about, honey, I need a new dishwasher. When's the last time you brought me roses?
Right.
None of these things are creeping into the conversations, and that's why the 90 days is so beautiful and lustful.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Life hasn't started happening yet. That's exactly right. We have come down to the end, and Cynthia, this is the opportunity that I give my guests to promote. They can promote anything with the exception of dollar amounts. I don't know if that's in your, in this case, whether that matters or not, because usually folks are authors that have books or whatever. But I know you have your show. Talk a little bit about Bear This and That, and when folks can hear it and how they can get in touch with you, and do your counsel, or just, this is your chance to self-promote. And so I turn the mic over to you as we close out. But I knew, you get what you expect, So I expected to have a wonderful time this morning, and I've had just that. So this is your chance to talk a little bit about Bear This and That, or anything else you want to talk about for that matter, in terms of how folks can get a hold of you.
Thank you so much, Mark. And, let me say it's been a pleasure and big fun with you. And I surprised myself that I could talk love at 6 in the morning.
See, so you did it. That's right.
Today, 6 in the morning, the love can roll out from upon my lips. So I'm happy about that, and thanks to you for making this happen. Folks can reach me. I have a Twitter account, which I'm very active on. Twitter, I'm at Bear This and That. I'm on Facebook, Bear This and That Relationship Radio. I have a new website that I'm still tooling up. So if you go there today, you'll see that I'm still tooling it up, and I will be tooling up all weekend. But all my shows, will go there on my podcast, and it is www.Bear This and That Relationship Radio.
All right, and that's Bear, B-A-R-E, as in like wearing nothing, as in... That's B-A-R-E. We're transparent. So
or bearing your soul.
That's right.
yes, B-A-R-E, bear this, THIS, and A-N-D, that.
Matter of fact, yeah, the and is not A-N-D. It's not A-N-D, is it? Is it the ampersand or is it the A-N-D?
It's the A-N-D.
It is A-N-D, okay, because the actual site on her Twitter site is the ampersand, but in the website is A-N-D.
It's A-N-D. On Twitter, it's A-N-D.
Right, but I mean, like I'm looking at your background page, your title page, and you have the little and sign. I just want to be clear because I know how touchy the internet can be if you don't put in everything the way they want it.
It's all spelled out.
All right, there you go.
On everything. Everything is all spelled out. It's
All right.
B-I-L-E, bear this, and A-N-D, and that. Everything is all spelled out. But the Facebook is Bear This and That Relationship Radio. For my Twitter handle, it's at Bear This and That. The website is www.bearthis-and-that-relationship radio.
Is there a particular time the show airs, or is it podcast?
The show is podcast as it stands right now.
Okay.
I am podcasting. Yes.
Okay. Well, I tell you again, a couple of things I'm going to do before the weekend is out. One, I'm going to make sure I like your Facebook page. I already followed you on Twitter and followed you on LinkedIn and Google Plus, so I'm going to have to see. I'll make sure I follow you on Facebook, and I'll look you up and listen to some of your archived past shows, your podcasts. But again, I cannot get across, and maybe I have, I don't know, to the listening audience how important. Even though, we've made some light of some areas, but they're still equally important because relationships, like I said, regardless, whether, like Cynthia said, is work, home, organizational, that's what makes everything move, the relationships of it. So what she's doing is some extremely important work. And if we just take some of the things that she said this morning, because I'm going to do the list thing. I'm going to do the list thing. I already do the picture thing. I got that, and already do the text thing throughout the day. And so, I'm going to add the list thing to like putting it in my desk drawer and in the glove compartment of the car and all that good stuff. So that's the one thing I'm going to take away from the day. But Cynthia, I thank you so much for joining me this morning. We will be in touch, and I always do this disclaimer about the electronics because every now and again they fail me. But if everything worked the way it was supposed to work, the show is recorded, and before the weekend is out, I'll have it up on Facebook. I'll email you the link, and you can do whatever you'd like with it.
That's a beautiful thing, Mark. I can't tell you how much fun I had this morning with you. It was a beautiful time for me. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'll tell you what, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will be in touch.
Fabulous. Thank you. Have a great weekend, Mark.
Thank you. You too. Take care now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.